Good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar, which is on Blueforce Alerts. And this is a part of the Mastering Blueforce, the weekly series. This was the week of February the 20th. During our session, as we do with all of our other webinars, we do mute everybody. Go ahead and type your questions in the question panel, and they will be addressed at the appropriate time today. The Mastering Blueforce series essentially is a series to just make sure that everyone has the critical tools, but more so the knowledge needed to efficiently master the Blueforce system. Now, these webinars will focus on key topics throughout our series. So we'll be focusing on today's topic, Blueforce Alerts, but we'll have other topics as we go through the next, obviously, oncoming several weeks. Okay, sorry for the sound issues. I'm in a different area with a different phone, so I'm trying to see if the phone is the issue or whatnot here. So I apologize for that. But today's session, we will go through a couple of different topics as related to Blueforce Alerts. Now, as we go through, we're going to talk about where the alerts are going to be out there, what Blueforce Alerts do for me. But more so, as we go through there, we're going to talk about what alerts are available to me to use. Now, as we go through there as well, we'll give you some items to keep in mind, but more so show you how to set them up in the system. Now, this is a quick introduction into Blueforce Alerts. As you will see, that there are tons of alerts and tons of things that the system can do for us. However, we will only be taking a look at a couple of these today. So what are Blueforce Alerts? So Blueforce Alerts can be best described as a tool within Blueforce, a powerful ability to provide you the real-time alerts about your jobs. And what it is every alert that's set up in the system is designed to help you solve problems proactively and control your labor costs. Now, as we go through today, you'll see there are a different number of alerts in the system, and each of them have the ability to send emails or text messages to you, letting you know, or more so alerting you, there might be an issue with something along the line with your job, whether it be budget related, whether it be an employee not being on site, whether it be an alert about an employee not taking a meal break. Those are just some examples of the different alerts that are available. So one of the things with the alerts is you can choose when to be notified in some of these examples. Like I mentioned, if an employee fails to clock in as scheduled, you can always have them have the system alert you. And essentially, if someone does not punch in, you'll get a little text message or an email letting you know that X employee didn't punch in within a given range of time. There aren't any preset minimum number of employees on site. So that's example is if you tell the system we need 5 employees to be there at 5 o'clock, and 5 o'clock comes around and you don't have those 5 employees, the system will alert you. Also, if an employee is about to reach overtime, or even if a job site is poised to go over their budget, an alert can be sent to you. And lastly, you have a couple of examples. Maybe an employee reports an accident during a clock out, or if an employee misses a meal break. Now, I'll go through a couple of these. I won't be discussing the accident one just yet, as that will be an alert that will be rolled out a little bit later this spring. That's going to be a little bit more in-depth than just an alert. We're going to actually have it do some other things for us in the process, so we're working on that right now. But we'll go through all the different alerts that are in the system. So here on the next screen here, you'll see a list of 10 alert types that are available for you currently in Blueforce. Now, these 10 alerts all do different things, obviously, depending on what you wanted to do. You'll see that accident one's at the very top of the list there. But we're going to go through about 6 of these here today and on today's call. But you'll go through here, these are the different alerts that are available. Now, as I'll say again later in the call, all editors, all submitters, and all approvers on this phone call have access to this particular tools, this tool of setting up alerts. So the ones we'll be covering today are going to be these 6 that are highlighted on the screen. We're going to start with the budget amount alert, and that's going to and budget hours alert, and both of those look at the budget and kind of how your your numbers or your actuals are comparing against your budgeted numbers. So we'll go through those 2 first, and for most of you, aware that you do have access to all the budgeted figures that are in JD Edwards. They're now interfacing over into Blueforce. So we'll go through that process a little bit more in depth in a little bit, but bottom line, you have access to seeing all the budget amounts now in Blueforce. We'll then go through 2 employee alerts. We'll go through one critical employee alert that looks at a specific employee being on site or not on site, and if they're obviously not on site within the given criteria, you'll get an alert. The 4th one is the minimum hours, so minimum employees alert, and that is the one I mentioned a while ago. It's based on the minimum number of employees being on site. So we tell the system 5 employees. We better have 5 employees, at least 5 employees on site, or you'll get alerted. And then the last 2 down here are kind of our miscellaneous alerts, I call them. They revolve around job overtime, and they revolve around meal breaks. So we'll talk about those 2 as well on this call today. So keep in mind that as we go through today's session, that all the alerts can be accessed by anybody on this phone call, all our editors, submitters, and approvers, from the Blueforce home screen. And this home screen is just like you see here as you log in. You may not have all the nice icons that I do, but when you log in, you'll see an option for alerts. And there you can go ahead and click on the alerts, which is a little question mark down there at the bottom, within the triangle. And when you click on the alert screen, it'll actually take you into the actual setup windows, or setup selections. We can actually select one of the types you want to work with, and then go and set up that alert. Now, as I mentioned earlier, alerts can be sent via email or text message. So as we go through there, you will have the option of setting up each alert, and each alert will have a similar window like you see here, to which you can then go and choose a specific manager that's already set up in Blueforce, or you can actually enter a specific email or SMS text address. So having the ability of keying in your own email address here allows you to use Blueforce to contact anybody. We have a site that wants to contact a building customer. One of our customers requests to know when we don't have enough people there. You could actually enter their email address here, or you could have a supervisor who may not have access to Blueforce, or may not even have set up a role in the system. You could actually have them emailed automatically by putting in their email address here, or text address if you have that. Now, I will say that this gives us the ability to now use those that don't have access to Blueforce to be set up with a kind of a messaging way of being notified in the field to get these alerts. Now, if you have a company-issued Verizon phone, now the users that have that Verizon phone can actually have their messages sent via text. Now, all the company-issued Verizon phones have a special special address, and that's the ampersand, which is the @ vzwpix.com. If you put in the 10-digit number before that particular address, I guess you say, that full text entry will actually send a text message to you or to that user when used. And this can be used within a typical email, or it can be used obviously today within our alerts. So for those that may or may not have known that, your phone, your company-issued Verizon phones are set up this way now. Now, if you don't have a company-issued Verizon phone and for some reason are using another provider, those providers do have those specific, addresses that you can look into to see what the address is for that particular phone, and follow the same convention, the 10 digits followed by that address. And when an email or text message is sent, this is an example of what you would be getting. Now, text message is going to be very similar. It's going to be like the body of this email message, but this is what an email looks like specifically. It'll be coming from a address called prodalerts@americanepay.info, It'll give you the subject line, or sorry, the subject line would be just kind of quick blurb, letting you know that the job number and name is missing a specific person as of a certain time. Now, this example is what I have set up for the critical employee alert. So this alert goes out and actually sends you the alert whenever Jane Doe, in this case, is not at job 100. If she's not at the job at the criteria of 8 a.m. on, I believe I have it set up every Monday, it'll send a alert to you. And like I said, this is an example of the alert sent over via an email. Now, as for the text message, it's very simple. It's just going to be the body of this email message pretty much is sent to you. It's just going to give you the job, the name, the time, and pretty much that's it. This gives you a quick little blurb, at least let you know that someone is not at the site. And one last thing before we go into the actual setup, all the alerts that I'm going to talk to you today are going to be live, meaning they are essentially real-time notifications. Now, with the power of Blueforce and using our different time collection methods, you can get pretty darn close to real-time notifications out of the system. Now, all the alerts are driven straight from Blueforce as the time is collected. So as the time is collected, it reverts back into Blueforce, and obviously you can log into Blueforce and see punches as they come in Blueforce. But that same mechanism there is what's driving this text message or these email notifications. Now, alerts are only going to be sent when the criteria is met. So once again, if you tell the system you need 5 employees on site and you have 7, you've met that criteria. You may have more employees, but you at least have that minimum 5 that's required. So in those cases, there's not going to be an alert sent to you. So if you had 5 set up in the system and you wanted to be alerted if you didn't have 5, let's say at 5 o'clock you only had 3 employees, then of course you're going to get an email. You're going to have an email or text message sent to you letting you know that you are short employees and need to get on it so you can get someone to go cover those other 2 spots. Now, some caveats to that process. Just so you understand, there's all positives here, but there's one little small negative. For those that have Walter time clocks, if they are not LAN clocks, meaning they are driven by cellular cards that are inside the clocks, or if they are possibly on Wi-Fi, or they are on dial-up. We have just a handful of clocks on dial-up. If you are a non-LAN connected clock, the sync times on those clocks will have to correspond to the employees punching in and punching out. So that means you'll have to get with the ePay team, whether it be myself, Tiandra, Jade, or Beth, and we'll have to work with you on getting those sync schedules to correspond a little closer to the actual schedule the employees actually working. So that way, the system can be syncing those times and sending them into Blueforce a little quicker. Now, if you have a LAN clock, meaning that you're connected to the network, you basically plugged into the wall, per se, at your job sites, and those LAN clocks, those clocks are going to be set up on what's called auto sync. Those will automatically sync every 2 minutes or thereabouts after a punch is recorded on the clock. So with those LAN clocks, there really isn't an issue as far as the live, close to real-time notification. So you don't have to worry too much about those those types of Walter clocks. Also, the mobile punch. If for some reason you go out of range, let's say you go in the middle of nowhere, middle of the desert, whatever it may be. But if you're out there and your phone goes offline and cannot get a cell signal, the system will let you still punch into the system. But keep in mind, when you punch in, it's going to be recorded on the actual device, which is your phone, and will sync back once you get back into civilization and you actually have a signal again. So keep in mind, those are 2 possible caveats. Once again, Walters that are not on LAN need to be, have more realistic sync times, or mobile punch, you may be out of range. Those scenarios as well need to be taken accounted for. So just a couple items to keep in mind about these alerts. But bottom line, in most cases and for most situations out in the field, you're going to find that these alerts are live and they're going to give you pretty darn close to real-time notifications. So let's take a look at a couple of the different ones that are available to us. The first one we're going to take a look at are our budget alerts. Now, our budget alerts, once again, as I showed you a while ago, they're going to be set up to notify you when a labor at the job site has exceeded, based on a percentage, a certain amount of dollars or hours. So what that basically means is if I want to know or be alerted that when my job becomes 5% over budget, I can go in there and tell the system, notify me 5% over budget. And once again, that can be based on a budget amount or a budgeted hours amount as well. So you got some options there on which one we want to use. But bottom line, you have the ability to tell the system which percentage you want to use. Now, as a reminder, Blueforce budget numbers are driven based on the budget information that has been created and updated by the ePay team in JDE. So keep that in mind that if your budgets are incorrect in JD Edwards, they're going to be for sure incorrect over in Blueforce. So let's get those updated and as needed over on the JDE side first. Budget alert, first one we're going to go through and just kind of show you some examples of what the screen up. And once again, like I mentioned a while ago, from the Blueforce home screen, to start this whole process, you're going to click on the alerts icon. And once you go into the alerts icon, you'll be then go into picking which alert you want to work with. This one is the budget amount alert. When you go into the budget amount alert, it's like to set them. The only thing, and once again, when you go for these alerts, they're very simple to set up. There's not a lot of work behind there. But I do ask if you have any questions or any concerns doing them the first time around, get with one of the members of the ePay team, once again, myself, Tiandra, Beth, or Jade, and one of us will be able to go ahead and walk through and show you how to get these going. But they're very simple to set up. In the screens as I go through there, you'll see that they're very simple. So the budget amount alert, we can generate an alert there, as it says there on this setup screen, when the amount is more than a certain percentage. So if you leave it at more than 0%, it's basically going to alert you at any point when it becomes out of budget immediately. But you have a percentage there you can put in there anywhere from 0 up to 100% if you wanted to. And then you have the ability to go in there and set the alert based on a specific job or any job. Now, if I leave my screen just like it is, like you see right here, the system is going to go through and alert you at any time, any job under your area of responsibility is over budget based on the budget amount. So this is going looking at the dollar amount for your labor. So in this particular case, if I leave it at any job, it's going to notify me if any job goes over budget. So that could be quite a few emails or text messages being sent out depending on how many jobs you have access to. Now if I choose otherwise, I can actually toggle that any job drop down and pick one of my specific jobs from that screen. So I don't have to see all of them. Maybe I only want to focus on one particular specific job. Once I pick a specific job, I do have the ability to go in there and pick a specific task. Maybe I only want to look at job 100, which is my main office, is my job name and number, and maybe I only want to look at the custodian task. I don't care about anybody else. I just want to see custodian because custodian always seems to be running over budget, so I want to focus on that one task. From the screen, I can pick custodian under the Any Task drop-down, and then lastly, choose if I want to see on a daily basis, weekly basis, or based on the reporting period. And the reporting period is your your pay cycle. So a reporting period in here and in Blueforce is related as a pay cycle. So if I have a 2-week pay period, then my reporting period would be over that 2-week period. So you have some options there whenever you go through and select the setup for your budget amount field. Budget amount alert. Now there on the bottom left of the view, you'll see your areas where you go and set up your emails and/or your text messages as needed. Now the other alert is the budgeted hours alert. Now you'll see here it looks identical to the budget amount alert. The only difference is a different title of the screen. That's really what it amounts to. Same thing. Set your threshold by percentage. You go in there and pick either all your jobs, leave it alone and say all jobs, or you can be specific to the job you want. Pick a job as related to a specific job. A task as related to a specific job, and then once again pick your day, week, or reporting period as your option. But budget hours alert and budget amount alert are pretty much identical. It's just basic. It's just based on, do you want to look at the hours or do you want to look at the dollars when you want to be when you get alerted. Now the system is just going to let you know that you're over budget. It's going to tell you how much. It's going to tell you any budget figures in your notifications. It's just going to be at your point there to go into the timesheet view and actually look and see what that budget amount is and where you're at currently. So bottom line, budget amount and hours and budget amount alerts, both of those alerts allow you to use a timesheet for your benefit. That's where you're going to actually do your checks and kind of do your verifications per se, just to make sure that you are actually hitting your budget or coming under your budget, hopefully. Now, other alerts that we have in here can be set up to notify you when your employees have not punched in within a certain period and therefore are not showing as being on site. Now, these are the two most popular alerts that we currently use. Now, the question I always get is, these are alerts, cool, why was I not told about these? Actually, we actually had several webinars in the past about employee alerts, and actually have quite a few users out there using the alerts now. So you maybe a fellow coworker or something may be getting alerts, you're wondering where they got them. Well, this is how they're getting them in the system. So as far as employee alerts are concerned, the two most popular ones and the two that are in the system are the critical employee alert, and that is the one where you can actually tell the system, I want to see, John Smith, and John Smith is the one I want to track. I want to make sure that he punched in within a certain time period. And if he did, then no alert. If he didn't, then you will get that text message or that email notification. The minimum employee alert now looks at the number of employees on site. So the number of employees on site there, as far as the minimum employee alert goes, lets you know that you have asked for 3 employees to be there at 5 p.m. If the 3 employees are not there or actually have not punched in during that particular time frame that you've asked the system to be counting punches, then the alert will be sent to you letting you know otherwise. So these are 2 alerts that we'll go through next. You can actually go through and see how those were set up. Now each of them are set up a little differently. The first one, the critical employee alert, allows you to set the alert based on a specific job. Now this one you can't say all jobs. You have to be specific here because the system is going to be looking at one specific job, and then it's going to ask you to specifically identify that employee that you want to make sure is not on site. So in this case, the alert says, generate an alert when my job 100, my main office, does not have, in this case, Edward Cozina. He's my employee here. When Edward punches in, if he's not there, I'm going to get an alert. So if he doesn't punch in, I'm going to get an alert letting me know otherwise. Now, the way this works is if you have access, once again, to multiple jobs, when I hit that drop down on the first drop down field there, where it says currently 100 my main office, I can actually go there and actually pick the job that I want to actually use here. So you'll have access to all the jobs that you have in your area of responsibility. Once again, then the employees, you'll have a list of all the employees that are available to work that job. So kind of going back through a webinar I did about 4 weeks ago, I think we talked about invalid punches was one of them, and also during manual punches I mentioned again. I referenced that employees are tied to jobs by that employee working jobs tab on the employee profile. So the jobs that the employees are assigned to will also allow you to drop down and pick the corresponding employee to the job you selected here. So it's all correlated, it's all tied to one another, but there you have the ability there to go in and pick the employee you want to see. Once again, critical employee alert is for one specific employee. If there are 5 employees at your job site that you want to individually make sure that they are clocking in or punching in and punching out, then in that case you'll have to set up 5 different alerts because this is, like I said, single alert for one employee. More so with this, it's called critical employee alert because you want this alert to focus on those critical employees at your job site. For example, your leads, your supervisors, anyone who might have a key, anybody who may have the phone that you need to punch in and punch out with, the ones that are actually the employees that you need to be on site so that way you can actually make sure that the job is done. So those are the ones that you'll have to you'd want to set up the alerts for. Now, more so with the alert, you have an ability here down the middle of the screen to actually tell the system what time do you want to actually record or have the system be counting punches for. So, for example, if the employee, let me go back over here. I'm just going to circle this whole area. So this whole area here is we're actually going to go in there and tell the system what punches do you want counted and during what time frame. So this particular alert, I have Edward on job 100, and I've told the system to only look at punches on Mondays and Wednesdays between 4 and 5 o'clock. Okay? If for some reason the employee has not punched in, recorded a punch between 4 and 5 o'clock, then you're going to get an alert sent to you letting you know that, well, the employee, in this case Edward Cozina, was not on site. Now, I want to caution you here that if this employee, for some reason, you asked him to come in at noon that day, on Monday, and he already punched in at noon, and whether or not he's already been, they're on site come 4 o'clock, or if he's already punched out at 4 o'clock, the rule here says this is the time frame I want him to punch in for. So if he does not record a punch between 4 and 5 o'clock, you're going to get an alert. Even if he's already on the clock, you're still going to get an alert because you've asked the system to count punches between a certain time frame. So if you don't care what time Edward comes in on the day, on Monday, you just need him to be there so you can actually make sure that he's cleaned the building. And that's a good example for some of those sites that are out kind of away from town, maybe 50 miles outside of town. You need to clean that building or clean that job site. Those are good examples. We can go in the system and tell the system to set up a critical employee alert on Monday and do an open range, like say 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That way it's kind of wide open. The employee can clock in at any time in that total time frame and let you know if he or she did not punch in. So once again, the time frame is critical here. You're just going to basically tell the system to count punches within that given range. And obviously, if Edward doesn't show up, then so be it. If you wanted to, you can set this even to a specific employee and task combination. So you can also set it up where Edward has to clock in as a custodian versus clocking in as a Vortex. If you want to get down to that granular level, it's up to you. But most cases, with this employee critical alerts been set up, we kind of leave it as any task. That way, it's not tied to one specific task. So once again, this example is just showing you this employee's punching in and there's a system that's actually counting punches or looking for punches for Edward on Monday and Wednesdays between 4 and 5 p.m. If for some reason at 5 p.m. there is no punch in Blueforce for him, then you're going to get an alert letting you know that he was not on site. Now this is where I will caution you as far as it comes from those clocks or the mobile punch scenario I talked about earlier. If the clock for some reason is not online or it has not synced punches yet before 5 o'clock in this particular example, you're going to get an alert. Although he already punched in on the clock, since those punches have not synced over to Blueforce, you will get an alert letting you know that he was not there. So then it becomes kind of okay, I'm getting an alert. I need to find out where he's at. You call up the job site and you find out, wait a minute, he's already punched in. That is the issue. Just keep in mind, whenever have a situation with the clocks that are not LAN clocks, once again, they are cellular clocks or Wi-Fi clocks, we need to make sure that the sync schedules are correct on the clock so we can get a more syncs and kind of a more frequent level. That's critical employee alert. Now the opposite one to this, or the more closely related one, the minimum employees alert. Now the minimum employees alert, what that does for us, it gives us the ability now to set not a specific employee, but now tell the system I need an X amount of employees to be punched in at a certain time frame. So for example, like my example here, same setup, you pick the job, you can be specific to a task if you need be. Maybe you have a job where you have 20 employees clocking in, and 5 of them are custodians, 5 of them are security guards, and 10 of them are, I'm just going to throw it out there, engineers. Okay? You are concerned And you're not concerned with the custodians, but you're more focused on making sure that you have 5 employees punched in as guards. What you actually do is actually set up a task here. Instead of leaving it any task, hit the drop down and pick guard off the list. And when the system starts calculating, it's going to look for just those guards. Maybe you don't care how many custodians show up. Maybe you don't care how many engineers are there, but you focus on those guards. And that's where the task function will come into play. Now, there's no rule here to say that just only pick one task off the list, that you can't set up multiple rules for the same job. The system in any of these cases will let you know that if I set up a minimum employees alert here, and it's for custodians, and then I actually set up another one for guards, it's not going to conflict. If you had set one up that's going to conflict, it's going to let you know. If it's going to involve the same task or same jobs, and it's kind of overlapping or conflicting with each other, it's going to let you know. So there's no rule to how many multiple alerts per job you can set up. Now in this case, I set up Monday and Tuesday. And on Monday, I want to make sure that on this job I have from between 8 a.m. and 12 noon that I have at least 3 employees punched in during this time frame. So once again, the meter starts at 8 o'clock, and if someone punches in at 8:01, it'll record it. If someone punches in at 10 o'clock, it'll record it. If someone punches in at 12:30, wait a minute, it's outside this range. So to that little example, I have 2 employees punched in. One has clocked outside of this range. Therefore, at 12:01, I'm going to get a little message letting me know that I only have 2 employees on site and I don't have enough employees working. So at that point, it's up to me to go out and do something, to either go find another employee to fill in or call the site and find out if we really aren't covered. On Tuesday, 5 to 7 is my time frame. There I want 5 employees at least punched in. So once again, very simple rule or simple alert to set up. All I'm doing is telling the system how many employees do I need to have at a minimum at the job site to essentially check off the checkbox and meet the criteria needed. So those 2 alerts that I'm going to go through today are referred to as miscellaneous alerts, but more so, there are, we so far, that gives us 6 alerts. In total, there's 10 alerts available in Blueforce. Now, it's other alerts as we go through. Making 11 or 12 total alerts at some point here in the near future. But for right now, we have 10 alerts that are available to us. The 4 that I'm not covering today, essentially, it's the accident alert, which I said I'll cover probably later in the spring once we have that a little bit more robust and it's ready to roll. Kind of our plan. I don't want to ruin too much on this phone call. Kind of let any of that out, but there's a lot of cool stuff with that alert coming out. Also, another alert is the time clock not syncing. There's an alert there that could actually let you know that your clock is not syncing. That's an alert that we typically don't set up for you because you really don't need it. That's more of an administration alert, but there's some of the alerts that we're not covering. These last 2, the job overtime alerts, it's going to let you know when a job reaches a certain overtime milestone. So if you want to control your overtime, this is the alert you want to use to keep that close in check. The other one is the meal break alert. Now the meal break alert has not been publicized all that much, in that the reasoning for that is because a lot of us on this phone call have automatic meal deductions. If you have an automatic meal deduction now, this alert will not work for you. This alert is what I call the California alert, because California is the state that requires our employees to punch in and punch out for lunch. Now, this alert works great and works the best for California employees because this is a situation where you can monitor if the employee has taken his or her lunch after a certain amount of time, or they have taken a short break, meal break, or maybe a too long of a meal break as well. This will also notify you for that reasoning as well. But bottom line, this works great for California employees, as I mentioned, because this is where automatic lunch deductions are not an option. So Those that are punching in and punching out for lunch, listen up. This is a good option for you to use going forward. The first one I'll talk about is a job overtime alert. It's very simple. A few drop downs to select, and then click save, and you're done. The first thing you'll do is you'll go in there and set up alert for any job or a specific job if you choose. You'll go in there and also be able to notify you if a specific employee or any employee has worked more than an X amount of hours in a day or week. So we have different overtime rules out there. So if you're focused on your employees working too much in a day, we can actually put a number of hours in a specific day. 8 hours in a day in some places around the country is overtime. So therefore, you can actually track that so it automatically notifies you if they have worked more than 8 hours in a day. Now, what you may want to do is if you're just focused on maybe not necessarily the 8-hour rule, but maybe want it on a weekly basis, you can go here and put 40 hours in a week. Now, what we've noticed is this is going to alert you at any point, regardless, as long as the hours criteria has been met. So if you have a, for a lot of the, I think it's the ACA Act, I can't remember what the act is offhand, I apologize for the name of it, but we have to actually track hours to make sure they are, was it a full-time employee or entitled to other benefits per se. You can actually change that little rule. Maybe you want to use this for more than overtime, or maybe you want to be aware if someone is getting close to overtime. If you can change that to say, you know, if any job, any employee has worked more than, say, 35 hours in a week. That way, when they actually record 35 hours on the timesheet, you'll be able then to be notified and kind of know that if they come back in before Friday, you might want to watch their hours or send them home a little early because they're going to hit overtime. If that is a concern, alerts I would have you activate. And once again, you can actually, with this one, monitor hours for a specific rate type. If anyone gets more than, for example, 16 hours of holiday pay in a week, you can get notified. Or maybe they get more than 20 hours vacation in a week, you can get notified. You can put any parameters, any kind of mix and match kind of scenario here you can put together and create alerts for that. So it's not just for job overtime, it's specifically there for overtime, but you can treat it in other ways as well. And the last alert I want to go through is the meal break alert. Now the meal break alert is a two-part setup. And the reason it's a two-part setup is because part one, you'll have to go in there and set up the alert based on a specific job. Now once you do that, you have to go in there and go to step two. And you'll see the screen looks pretty plain. And you're thinking, it doesn't look like there's much to set it up. And there really isn't much. But step one is the alert part. You go in there and tell which job do you want to know when an employee has a meal break exception. If you have 50 jobs and you want to know all 50 jobs had a meal break exception, you'd have to go through and set these up 50 times. Unfortunately, it's because this is a single job per alert. Now, also with this, one of the things you can do, actually, let me hold that thought before I go any further. But one thing before I go to part two here is the California rules make this an ideal alert for the setup because now you're monitoring the employees' punches when they're actually going to lunch and coming back from lunch. So meal break alert part one is set up the actual job here. Part two now is going to actually involve a little work. And this is where you may want to reach out and contact one of us on the ePay team, either myself, once again, Tiandra, Beth, or Jade, and one of us can go in here and help you with this setup. Now, one of the things that's different here is in part two, and it's not really part, I'm sorry there, it's not, I put the wrong Roman numeral there, it was part two, set the meal break rule on the job shift to monitor a certain lunch time frame. Now, typically, for those who might be familiar with the screen, this screen is where we actually go in and set up the lunch deductions, automatic lunch deductions for everybody. Now, typically, we would go in, and we, being the ePay team, would actually go in here and set up a lunch deduction right here where I circled it. Now, the always is typically would be the word deduct. Since we are not using the automatic lunch deduction in California or on this particular job, we would change it to monitor. And what the system does instead, it's always looking at the employee's punches, and as they come back to Blueforce and are syncing up to Blueforce, it's monitoring that punch to make sure that the employee follows the criteria that we have set up. So in this case, we changed the drop-down to monitor, and we put in the number of hours, in this case half hour, to be monitored. So what I put in there is 30-minute lunch that's going to be monitored for this particular for the employees that work this particular job and shift at the top of the string. Now, the way this works is then you have the ability to set a short meal break or a long meal break threshold as well. So if the employee works less than 30 minutes, that's considered a short meal break, and you will be notified via text or email letting you know that this a certain employee has not met their lunch requirement. Now, this is a big thing in California, and I hear other states are going to go towards this as well. But this is a big thing because we need to make sure that they are taking their full break. Now, the long break can be set up then as a threshold, say 45 minutes. This is an example. Threshold you like, but if they take more than 45 minutes, then you will be notified that they took a long meal break. Now, the way this works, and in both cases, the way this operates, is the employee is still going to be required to use you can set whatever the options of start meal break and end meal break when recording their punches. As a quick side note for everybody, whether it be on the time clock, phone in, web punch, mobile punch, all those options, whichever way the employee is actually recording their meal break, is they must use the options to start meal break to go to lunch and end meal break to come back from lunch. At no point do they use the actual punch out, or sorry, clock out or clock in options that are available. So I believe the lunch meal breaks are options options 3 and 4 on the actual time collection devices. Now, once again, the monitoring function here cannot be used with the actual auto meal deduction. So if you want the auto meal deduction, then we take out 30 minutes or an hour or whatever the predetermined, I guess, amount of time is from the employee's time entry. To that point, you just have to remember to have the employee go out and enforce that they actually take that full lunch break on their own. Otherwise, we can always set it to monitor here, and the system is monitoring the punches, and it's up to the employee to actually start and end meal break as needed. So those are 6 of the different alerts that are in the system that right now we're going to start kind of pushing everyone to kind of get towards start using the alerts because they're powerful tools. They let you know when key things are occurring at the job site. That way, you know, we understand that most of our jobs around the country are not really supervised, meaning that you have employees that might be there or not, and you don't really know unless they punch in or punch out. And this monitoring, the different alerts here allow you to kind of not be there, but kind of be there at the same time, because you can actually now get notified when someone is not at the job site, when someone doesn't take a meal break, when your jobs are are hitting overtime, all that good stuff. So you've got all that ability now via these alerts. Now, as we wrap up today, I will stress again that if anyone needs any assistance with these items or have any support questions or issues, please first contact ISS IT support, which is either myself, Tiandra, Beth, or Jade. You do that via the help desk link here. That'll create a help desk ticket for you, or you can call the help desk number at 210-495-6093, and a help desk ticket will be created for you. The other option is contact ePay support, but those are really reserved for after-hours issues and/or Walter issues specifically. So I will say thank you again for joining us today on our webinar on alerts. Join us again every Tuesday and Thursday. So this Thursday we'll have the same webinar once more. But if you join us on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the upcoming weeks, we'll have different topics we'll be covering. Next week's topic that's on the calendar is for discussion on manual timesheets, and that focuses on the abilities of doing back pay or any missed pay back to your employees. So we've covered that in the past, so many of you may have already heard that discussion. There may have been some subtle changes to that process since then. So I invite all of you to next week for that topic on Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. Central Time. Until next time, thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you again on the next webinar.